The difficulty in the job is, as I said, I have to draw something every day for the next day. So at around noon, I begin sort of grinding, what am I going to do for the next day's paper? And my process is to sort of write down on a sheet of paper a small list of topics that I think might be interesting for people, what people will be talking about the next day after they've read the newspaper or watched TV. And the difficulty then is to turn one of those topics into an idea. And when asked, how do I do that? The best analogy that I can give to people that don't do this for a living is, let's say you're hanging out with some friends and you're all having lunch and someone brings up a topic, something that's happening here at Stony Brook, and someone makes a comment about it, and then someone makes a little joke about it. People kind of laugh a little bit, and then the next person adds a little something to it, and people laugh a little louder, and then the next person says something, and everybody cracks up. And we've all done that. Well, I do that every day by myself in my office. This is just entitled, Madoff Behind Bars, Day 1. Let me get this straight. I give you 1 cigarette, and next week you guarantee me 10, and Madoff says, it's that simple. This actually proudly hangs in Judge Denny Chin's office, and he was the judge who sentenced Madoff. So that was kind of a proud moment for me. Okay, and the next group is about healthcare. This is a guy saying, you been here long? And this was sort of, the next one was sort of my take on the whole reality of the politics of what's going on with healthcare. So this says, old saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And the HMO guy says, our plan doesn't cover apples. The pharmaceutical company says, we'll crush them into little red pills and sell them for 20 bucks a piece. And the lawyer says, my client has endured the agony of a bit of apple skin wedged between his teeth. We're suing. And the Democrat said, we can cut up the apple and piece it back together for a mere $1 trillion. And the Republican says, apple schmapple. So that sort of encompasses to me why we have a problem with health care. Okay, now the Palin cartoon. So, please, I mean, I had fun picking on Sarah Palin, but I defend her as well. Look, she's smart. She really is smart. She's charismatic. She's dynamic. She has an interesting story. All those things are true, okay? But she wrote on her hand while she's giving a speech. Even I told you what a bad student I was. Look, I didn't write on my hand. So I drew this cartoon. Sarah Palin is not ready to be president. You would not believe how many phone calls I got on this cartoon. So the main complaint is that Barack Obama uses a teleprompter. And I argued with them and said, this isn't a teleprompter. To start with that, this is her hand. She's not in 9th grade. Okay? My kids come home from school, in particular my 9th grader, covered with stuff on his arms. People draw stuff on him. He's written his homework across his hand. She was going to be the vice president of the United States. So there's that difference there. And the more interesting thing, just in terms of my job, is people wrote me emails, angry emails. You're a socialist. Newsday always does this, and on, angry. And so I wrote them back. There were only like 5 of them, and I wrote them back and said, thanks for your email. You know, I beg to differ. And then I basically said, you know, I admire Sarah Palin's story. I think she's a bright woman who's certainly got a lot of charisma. But to compare this with using a teleprompter to give an hour-long speech, or to even compare her intellectual, the use of her intellect against Obama's is, I think, ridiculous. And I just think that it's a fair cartoon, and I don't think she's ready to be president. Well, now it's an animation. If any of you have worked in Flash or any kind of animation, you can't just put a guy in. I guess if you want to do something and become a zillionaire, you can do like South Park, where everybody kind of moves like this, you know, and they do those things really on deadline. But, you know, the animation's terrible, but it's hilarious. But if you want to have like hands moving and body, you know, people jumping and moving, then after you've drawn them all, then you have to cut everything out into little pieces. Here's the guy's head. Here's his mouth smiling. Here's his mouth frowning. Here's his mouth smiling open. Here's his mouth frowning open. That's just his head. Here's 2 eyes. here's bug eyes, here's little half moon eyes, here's his hands, here's his arms. You get the picture. That's one person. Now do that for everybody in the animation. Haven't even done the animation yet. That's just to get it to where it is. Then do the background scenery. And then put it all into Flash and put the soundtrack in and then put all the pieces in. And when the guy's talking, have his mouth go like this and move his arm up like that. So after doing like 50 of these, I've now figured out that it takes about an hour a second. So if it's a 30-second animation, it's roughly 30 hours of work. And, you know, but I love them because they're really fun and they're very different than what I do for the paper. And I've been fortunate enough to have some big hits. I'll show you one tonight that's had 15 million hits. So you guys go on YouTube, that's a lot. I mean, if you go on YouTube and somebody's had like 30,000 hits, you're like, wow, this is pretty popular. So 15 million's insane. As a matter of fact, it crashed the Tribune blog sites nationally for like 2 days. And I was like, woohoo! And the paper was like, what are you doing? You've crashed our blogs. I'm like, woohoo! Because, you know, that's pretty cool. Let's see. This is on how angry Americans are.
With so many pressing issues facing the country, we're out on the streets today to gauge the mood of America. Excuse me, sir, how do you feel about our current economic situation? Are you more or less frustrated than a year ago? Do you think the country is headed in the right direction? Are you satisfied with the way Washington is handling it? As if the stimulus has given you more job security. Tune in next time as I take an inside look at our healthcare system.